What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second album by American hip hop DJ Drama. Basically, this product is called Gangsta Grillz, the album Volume 2. Basically, this album is called Gangsta Grillz, the album Volume 2, and it came out in the spring of 2009. So the thing about this particular album here, this was a pretty relatively immediate follow-up to Gangsta Grillz, the album Volume 1, which has a pretty blitzed and hit potential. Gangsta Grillz, the album from 2007, had some pretty glitz and hit appeal back in late 2007. Pitches like that just lasted. Even though the promotion about that album was relatively brief, it was a novel idea just because it was an offshoot of like the same conduct that DJ Khaled was doing around in 2007, which definitely had the appeal. Getting DJs that just put a bunch of folks on songs was a relatively new concept back in 2006, 2007. So some good type pitches, getting an alternative to DJ Khaled, just that has that particular aspect of like a Gangsta Grillz mixtape like he had produced for so many of folks throughout the mid-2000s, pitches like that. So it's definitely an excellent concept getting that particular fare just in an album type format. This is the immediate sequel, and it definitely has some banner type appeal. Now, I would say I gave Gangsta Grillz the album from 2007 to 10 out of 10. This one's a little bit shorter, doesn't have 18, 19, 17 songs on here as far as these pitches can happen, but it just barely misses like the concept. The reality of it is, on this particular album, I wound up recommending there's 13 songs to this album. Out of those 13, I wound up recommending 12, but the pitch behind it, at least 2 of those are almost songs. So it's just some pitch as far as saying there's at least 10 full bound songs that I recommend. There's 1 song I don't recommend, but 2 of which are kind of here and there. Not so much that they're bad in quality, but just the pitch. I realized within the oftenness, I think, considering I purchased this album, the oftenness of how often I would listen to 2 of these songs in here, I realized I realize that there has to be a certain degree of grain of salt when I give these albums 10 out of 10, just saying, well, you would think within an album that you gave a classic score that there would be songs that you would just routinely there would be songs that you would routinely have just there would be routine kind of songs that you would just have whipped out and varietized anytime they pop up in like a shuffle or something like that. But I realize there's at least a couple on here that's not as full bound. They probably would get more skips within the commonplace of, despite the fact that I praise them and talk about them within enough lighting point in a good sense, I question how often I would listen to them. So it's just a pitch that might on the occasion, for albums that I've purchased, that I reviewed after I purchased within some of those type tones, that might happen within a certain type of sense, but I look within the format as far as saying that's the only reason why this album wouldn't get a 10 out of 10, but for the most part, the fare behind it is to say it's going to get a 9.75, so it just barely misses the mark as far as getting a 10 out of 10. These songs are, for the most part, pretty full-bound enjoyable. It's just the pitch of just saying that it just has like a there's a relative minor snag in like the quality aspect as far as like the tone of disc, like the consistent kind of replay value. It's just the pitch that this album, for some strange reason, is just not as full bound starts to. I mean, there's some moments on here. The thing that this album does more so than the previous one is it takes some shifts of folks that are kind of out of the ordinary and like the placement of them kind of have it. I mean, Ludacris in 2000. There's some folks on this album that are kind of out of their element in terms of like their contemporary kind of popularity, which is interesting because in a lot of senses this is probably one of the few verses that a lot of these folks dropped on here, just like getting T.I. in 2009 as he was starting to drop out of the spotlight and phase out of like his paper trail days, and right before he went to prison, pitches like that. Young Dro way out in 2009 because not a terrible amount of folks were fucking with him full bound, apart from that Takeoff song he did with Young L.A. Trick Daddy in 2009 was kind of a lot quieter. Akon was starting to phase out in 2009. Fabulous, more or less, was starting to phase out in 2009. Mike Jones was kind of somewhat starting to phase out in 2009. Folks like Scarface and Young Jock were starting to phase out. In 2009. So it's just the pitch as far as getting like those late shifts. It's just kind of a swirl of things, but it just has the impact. It's just kind of a swirl of things, but it's just kind of starting to have the impact of just like a relative. And say the swirl of things as to how that particular fair going to happen. I mean, somehow this is just a quieter album. I mean, it has like some good appeals about it, but it just kind of feels like the marketplace we're kind of shifting to different ties. And this is a particular point, one particular folk on this album who really shines through on here more so than probably a good assortment of folks would be Gucci Mane. This is like a good type one that shows like the metamorphosis of what was happening with rap music, where it has some degree of taste of how late 2000s hip hop had kind of happened, a little bit of minor taste of 2008, 2007, 2006 hip hop on here, but it kind of sheds the concept. It's just interesting that DJ Drama was T.I.'s DJ within those pitches, but it kind of advances to like the next market of like what's getting ready to happen. So it's kind of a page turner of a project. This album is kind of a page turner of a project that just kind of goes between the styles from shifting from late 2000s to early 2010s within those fairs. So some good type pitches, but Say apart from Gucci Mane that has that particular appeal, I'd also say that The Dream is a good example of that, even though he didn't last too long in the 2010s. Flow Ride is on here quietly one time, and he's getting kind of, Gotti's on here. It's just kind of the advancement of getting like some trap type music within those formats. So it just has that aspect, but it's just a briefer album than expected within those pitches. It's kind of surprising, is because 2009 sales, there weren't a ton of real rap albums that were really predominant within those factors. It's kind of been like a relative, apart from Kid Cudi, I'd say, and maybe like one or two other folks like Eminem with Relapse and most of the pitches, it felt like things were kind of somewhat wounded from like the internet downloads and pitches like that, some of those type things within it. But Gucci Mane was getting out of prison, Lil Wayne was going to prison, T.I. was going to prison, so it's just within those type of appeals that this was kind of shifting of the tides. It's like the mixtape, Dat Piff era started to pick up. I look after it, two good singles off this album within those appeals. These probably should have charted a lot higher than they did, but it's just kind of the facet that for some reason DJ Drama didn't charge full. But the quality of these songs, like Daydream, is definitely a real standout. This continues to be, in my opinion, a classic DJ Drama type song that probably should have had a lot more appeal. Considering that the quality of the Akon hook and pitches like that, I think this song definitely should have had more than 4 million plays on Spotify. I just felt like that was an example of probably a song that outdid some of the ones that Akon did on Freedom around that particular time. Was just the aspect, and it's the same thing with Ridiculous. This is just kind of like I was saying, it's just a late shift album. This is just not so much bad timing, but just the aspect of not realizing that things were kind of shifting within the format. There's just some ones on here, the facets of a lot of folks. DJ Drama tended to fuck with a lot of folks that were kind of getting out of their element within the spotlight of how things were kind of happening. So you're not going to find like, Waka Flocka's not on here, Yo Gotti is not on here enough. Folks like that, Rick Ross, Meek Mill, some of those type folks that were going to happen just a year and a half later, some of those type pitches. So it's just kind of strange getting this as like almost like an epitaph of like what the 2000s was kind of doing with rap. Yeah, I look after like Daydream is like a classic but secret kind of late shift for Akon and T.I. I'd say a good banger within that example. Just kind of a glazed kind of go-go music bleed as far as what's first going to happen. So just in the pitch, it's sounding like a go-go club, some of those type places within the format. This promo night, some of those type aspects. This really feels ripped out of 2008. It's just a late shift kind of aspect of just getting like Akon as he started to phase out of the spotlight. This is probably one of his best hooks. This is a real blistering type one. This really nails it. On top of that, this is a team up with Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg is on this song just like he was with the I Wanna Fuck You days. So it's a good type pitch getting a further team up with Akon and Snoop Dogg, and then T.I.'s thrown on there as a bonus. This is like a 2009 shift T.I. verse before he went to prison. So it's just one pitch as far as saying it has some good type appeals. Kind of a dimmer type song within the aspect. By dim, I just mean a little bit more glazed and just kind of malaise within it, but just nails the aspect of just being able to get towards it. Probably should have had a lot more commercial type appeal. I don't want to say it was bad timing, it was just within the pitch. It just felt like things were just kind of preoccupied to have this song have more chart appeal. But a song with some better time, a particular song with some better timing that felt like an early shift type one, an early bird for that particular format of what was getting ready to happen in the 2010s is Ridiculous. Second single, it's like a buzzing kind of late 2000s kickstart to like the Ridiculous, like a buzzing kind of late 2000s kickstart to like early 2010s mixtape Gucci Mane and them, some of those type folks that like the product is how Dat Piff was getting ready to happen. Good Zaytoven banger to kind of get here. So some folks on Ridiculous, OJ the Juice Man, Yo Gotti, some of those type folks that just classic type appeal. Gucci Mane was definitely a pretty good anchor. Now, considering the fact that Gucci Mane was just getting out of prison in the first half of 2009 and then working on his album, The State vs. Radrick Davis, in the second half of 2009, he had a pretty big 2009. He was doing things within those products that just kind of pitched as far as ushering in that mixtape sound that was pretty predominant for years later. But this is just kind of an early bird to that format. I kind of feel like the first half of 2009 was a lot more spare just because you didn't have folks like Ludacris, T.I., some of those type folks, Plies, folks like that, Rick Ross for the Rick Ross did drop deeper than rap, but it was just kind of in a smoother type format. It's just the pitch is just as far as saying it's just kind of more awkward era as far as what's first going to happen. Soulja Boy wasn't around, folks like that. Trick Daddy, Ying Yang Twins. So it's just when the pitch as far as saying there just wasn't really anyone predominant to really carry the torch. But this is just one of those type ones as Gucci Mane started his rollout for how he would dominate things for a good while with trap and some of those type aspects. So good type tone. But alright, so really out of these 13 songs in here, the only real song I don't recommend within a full bound sense is just the song Come Up Boys, which just has the same production as like the song Pip. The song Come Up Boys has the relative same production as Pimpin' Ain't Easy, but it's just the worst variation of that. It just kind of felt like Come Up Boys just felt like a late shift kind of on the Grizzly mixtape type format, just to nail the PL's full bound. I think it was trying to give some shine to like some on the come up type folks, like it says, come up type boys with a pitch behind, but it's just kind of the format as far as saying just didn't deliver his full bound. I just question like the format, if whether or not it could have had someone like OJ the Juice Man on there, someone like that could have had a little bit more Grizzly, or maybe even throwing Waka Flock on there or something within that lighting. But it just is kind of the pitch. It's just kind of a blander type one, especially in the production type format. Yeah, there's plenty of nice ones on here. So talk about some of these, like Yacht Music is a real good standout, real excellent type of appeal. It says Nas and Scarface on there and metamorphosis, which is pretty excellent. So Yacht Music's like a super glossy, kind of comfy summer shine to kind of get here. Just a good kickback tune within pitches like that. Just some yachts and slow motion pitches like that. Some good type fares. Good, great song to bake in like the sunlight and just get spun out as far as those fares gonna have. So by spun out, I mean hella just liquor and hell, liquor, and ganja in your system, some pitches like that. Just appreciating like the summer heat, just having a real good time socializing, pitches like that. Just in a smoother type sense. Just real glossy, like the aspect of like some plushness. Another good standout. Now, unfortunately, Gucci Mane is not on here more full bound, but it's just kind of a brief kind of appetizer and teaser that just has. Gucci Mane definitely has some scene stealing moments on this album. This is another example of Smoke. Smoke is like Gucci Mane on like a primer for like early 2010s mixtape glare. It had to say within some of these type aspect, just a good nightclub bite and this like social, the definite social type song kind of get here and pretty sparky. It's just the format. I feel like most of the songs off this album, in terms of like the trendiness, this does not have as much. This really feels like I was saying like more of an epitaph to like the late 2000s. And the product of like the previous decade, songs from 2008, 2007, 2005, some of those type pitches, but just the format that it also in a minor sense, man. This album also in a minor sense manages to kick off or help kick off some of the formats like the early 2010s, some of those type formats, but mainly the songs that do that are the Gucci Mane songs within the pitch. So it's just kind of, this is the product of what was getting ready to happen. It's just kind of the flavors as far as saying, yeah, Gucci Mane's not on here a real ton of times, I'd have to say, within those aspects. Another one that has some pretty good trendy to like that particular moment, more feels ripped out of 2009 more so than like the 2010s, is Tipper Love. This snags a real good The Dream feature. Has Too Short on here in LA, The Dark Man, good type appeals. Tipper Love's like an in-between kind of half The Dream, Tipper Love's like an in-between kind of half The Dream R&B and half nightclub kind of late 2000s pop to kind of get here. It's kind of some leftover kind of paper trail by T.I. kind of glaze kind of get. So just the format of like that pop rap type appeal that T.I. would have with songs like Whatever You Like and Live Your Life and some of those type ones like What Up, What's Happening, some of those type pitches just with like the dream on there to help out with the hook and just give it like some routine kind of appeal. So it's just the pitch. It's an example that just feels like late 2008, early 2009 within those formats. Just has Too Short on there instead, which is a pretty, like, once again, talking about some late shift type ones, is Too Short being on a particular commercial type song. I just question the format, how many songs Too Short's been on with The Dream. So it just has that this particular song has that relative kind of commercial appeal about it. So some good type aspects, getting The Dream when he was the shit back in 2009, some of those type pitches within it, just getting to those aspects. Another snazzy one, and in a good sense, this album has some good hooks on here, particularly songs like Sweat with Ray J, I'd say Love for Money with Trey Songz, Tipper Love with The Dream, and Daydream with Akon. There are a series of songs on here, Yacht Music with Marsha Ambrosius. There are some nice ones that the hooks on here are pretty excellent. Most of the R&B singers, or pretty much all the R&B singers, give DJ Drama a real good series of hooks. That I think that's why it's so surprising this album didn't do better. But Love for Money is like a nightclub glitz, feeling flashy. I'd have to say just good aspects like that. Just kind of get hella drunk, I'd say, within this particular song. Just prompt some bells, pitches like that. Just some good social sparks as far as this first going to happen. So just from the pitch, it's typical type product. This just feels ripped out of late 2007, 2008, some of those type moments within format. It's interesting that there are so many guests. This is like a true sequel to like that 5001s and some of those type songs, the two singles off of DJ Drama's 2007 album. This is just a massive posse song. I guess Gucci Mane was on here 3 times. But yeah, Young Jock is on the song, which is interesting. Bun B's on here and Flo Rida is on here. I think this was intended to probably be like a buzz single or something to grab some attention, but has a lot of guests on here. It's kind of like when you think of 5001s or the one that had, there were like some ones on there that had like Young Jock and Nelly and folks like that on there, a bunch of folks within those aspects. This kind of pitch that this has a number of guests on here within those pitches, but it works for like the conduct, but it feels more like that same sort of glamour of like works for that same sort of glamour of songs like 5001s and Feds Taking Pictures, some of those type ones that feel like kind of in between like sports game, football game type fashions and then nightclub type glitz. It's the remnant of 2007 DJ Drama, so some good type feels getting a sequel to that, just kind of a leftover that vibe. I'm Fresh is a quality one as well. It's like a glittery kind of bright step out to kind of get within these aspects of some definite city pizzazz. I'd have to say here, just a new era kind of Mike Jones and Trick Daddy off this particular song. This is like a routine kind of late 2000s club night as far as those pairs kind of absolutely just good type pitch. Now, Rick Ross feels right at home on this particular song, I'm Fresh, as far as this person can happen, but definitely considering that Mike Jones was starting to get past his prime around these times in mid-late 2000, and starting to get past his prime in early mid-2009, and definitely Trick Daddy, who hadn't been on a charting hit since 2006, is just kind of within the appeal as far as saying it's just good, nice one to get some of these late shift type ones, just the aspect behind it. It feels like a leftover kind of song from Rick Ross's Trilla, some of those type of aspects, this kind of aspect. This feels less of like a deeper than rap song by Rick Ross and more of like a Trilla type vibes to something ripped. It's the Justice League beats. That's pretty much the production fare that Rick Ross is getting from them, unlike Trilla's 2008's Trilla. So this is kind of the conduct behind that. I'm trying to think of some other songs I haven't talked about on here. We Must Be Heard's a pretty nice one. This has a very quiet, ludicrous verse on here. It's really too bad that he was starting to be more in waning popularity around this time. It was just starting to become noticeable. I think when I recognized this album from 2009, I realized I was kind of like, why is Ludacris being so quiet and mild around these times? It just felt strange that he was not. I realized that pretty much around the time when like Theater of the Mind and pretty much around the time when Theater of the Mind and the Battle of the Sexes albums came out, I started to notice that Ludacris just became a lot more winded. It's this kind of aspect. Maybe not so much on 2008's The Preview by Ludacris, that particular mixtape, but just with an aspect that Theater of the Mind was really quiet with promotion runs, and then it's the same thing within a relative sense with Battle of the Sexes. It's kind of the appeal that Ludacris started getting more winded. He did some things in 2009, but it just wasn't his full bounce. This kind of pitches he started to starting to moreover face out of the spotlight, this kind of pitch behind it, but this is a nice one. It's another example like some late shift type ones. We Must Be Heard's like a night simmering kind of hustle bleed song to kind of get within the aspects here. Just late shift Luda, I'd say within those aspects, like I was saying. It's like some mutual dredge to kind of get here, and it's just some good kind of evening weavings pitches like that. So this snack run's picking up like some checks mix, some of those type formats easily getting like Taco Bell runs and frozen burritos, some of those type aspects within the pitch. Has Willie the Kid on here and Busta Rhymes, some of those type aspects within it. It's kind of the fair as far as just being able to say within that. It kind of has some of that leftover kind of just hustle kind of malaise. So this is a good product of like a relative mixtape type cut ripped out of like late 2000s type fashion, but it just kind of feels more dreary within that aspect. It's a good type tone. Just real Apple type one brings like a mixtape type format to like a more commercial bite about it. Just has that particular appeal. Like I was saying, good, nice, secret, Ludacris verse. He was quieter in 2009 like T.I. was, and then Busta Rhymes, good type of appeal, getting him on like this relative era. So it's kind of pitch. I mean, putting Busta Rhymes on here is just, he's another cat that was just kind of starting. I mean, after like his Big Bang album, he had a 2009 album, Back on My BS, that had some good bops on there, but Busta Rhymes is starting to get more quiet around this time Busta Rhymes was starting to get more quiet around this time as well, and he really didn't drop another album until 2012, which was kind of a Google Play only type album. So it's just the pitch that Busta Rhymes really didn't do too much in 2010s. It's kind of the appeal, but I look after it. So I'm trying to think of other songs. I haven't talked about A-Town. This is a nice one. T.I. was really not on this album that much because he was getting ready to go to prison, but this is like a classic team up with T.I. and Young Dro. Sean P. from the Youngblood. The cat Sean P. from Youngbloods is on this particular song, which is pretty dope, and then a cat named Lonnie Mac as far as this first one goes. So it's just one pitch as far as saying A-Town. A-Town's like a typical kind of mixtape like Tip and Young Dro combo to kind of get here. Just kind of some ATL buzz vibes that I had to say about this one. Just a dope 2006 reminder. So it's just one the pitch. Not sure it's full bound of T.I. realized that the tides were going to shift within those aspects, but it just kind of has like a ghoulish type vibe about it. Not so much full bound ghoulish, but just kind of aspect of like, when I say a 2006 reminder, it's just kind of the facet of just saying, hey, do you remember those times of T.I. being in his prime back in like the Why You Wanna and What You Know type days, and Young Dro from like Shoulder Lane and Rubber Band Banks, some of those type pitches, just kind of the format that just kind of has like a mild kind of haunting bristle about it, just the format of disappearing into like the concept of T.I. getting ready to go to prison for a good while, and Young Dro, the possibility of him maybe not putting out another album. So it's just the pitch. Because originally Young Dro was going to drop an album in 2009, but it just never came out because the singles didn't catch on. It's just the pitch as far as saying that these particular classic combos these particular Young Dro and T.I. type combos were starting to be in more. These particular Young Dro and T.I. type combos were starting to be in shorter supply just because the aspect that the finaglements and the mishaps that were going on. So it's just one pitch, but it is a nice one. Back in the day, I didn't mess with this song as much, but I appreciate this song a lot more now. This one is kind of trendy like the times. It's kind of a conduit type song that is kind of late shift, but it just kind of has the format of just kind of melding some of those type formats as far as like laying down the tracks for like how the mixtape formats were getting ready to happen. I'm Trying to think of other songs I haven't. I don't think I've talked about Sweat and then the two Almost songs. So Sweat is like a tilted kind of R&B mixtape style bite to kind of get here. This song reminds of like 2008 in like a smoother sense that I'd say. This is like a promo type song, but it's rugged about it. So this is the pitch, having Ray J, Fabulous, and LA the Darkman on here. Fabulous is a nice touch about this particular song, because Fabulous is starting to get a little bit more quiet around this time. He did have Throw It in the Bag, but apart from those pitches, this kind of format. Kind of getting a song like Ridiculous or Smoke, some of those type pitches, but just having like an R&B flavor towards it. So for more R&B oriented type clubs, some of those type pitches just has that particular appeal of having some of that stunt type night just with like a rugged type sense, but also just kind of some of that promo night kind of gloss. So good type appeals. Definitely probably could use another song like this on here, but good aspects for it. And then the two Almost songs would be Pimpin' Ain't Easy and then Gotta Get It. So Pimpin' Ain't Easy is like a grizzled kind of UGK-like uptown surfing to kind of get with like some venue snarl all about it. On top of that, it's kind of like some hole-in-the-wall sludge, I have to say. So definitely like the fact that Bun B was on this song, but some of these particular type fares, Styles P, good nice appeal to get Styles P and LA the Darkman on here and Jovan Days as far as those pitches. But I look after it. The thing about this particular song, I'm not sure as to whom particularly pulls off the hook on Pimpin' Ain't Easy. It's a good, nice one within a relative type sense, but it's just not as... The hook on Pimpin' Ain't Easy is a little bit screechy and not as recitable as Full Bound compared to some of these other type ones. I probably would have went possibly with like Jay Holiday or something like Trey Songz. I think Trey Songz easily could have given like this album a secondary hook. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know who, it might have been that Jovan Days that did this particular one. It has a decent enough hook on here. It was just kind of the pitch. I feel like the melody, if that hook had been rewritten to like a little bit more format where it just would have melded a little bit better, probably would have been a more affable type one. But I definitely like the production fair that one. This feels like a UGK song that would have happened in 2009 had they made it to that point, and just having like the extra aspect of like some hole in the wall type place. So just good type of appeal. But I just question the commonplace. I would listen to this song on like the here and there type occasion, but I don't know the factor as to how often Full Bound would kind of happen. But I do like this song within a mostly type sense. So just kind of the pitch behind it. So that's an Almost song, and then Gotta Get It with Juvenile, BG, and Soulja Slim, which is a pretty interesting aspect that Soulja Slim fucked with DJ Drama. I wonder how that particular fair kind of happened, considering that Soulja Slim passed on in 2003, so that's 6 years before this. Just within pitch, as far as saying, it's like a throwback to mid-2000s kind of DJ Drama mixtapes, I'd have to say here. Just classic kind of New Orleans combo, I'd have to say, within these pitches. All those folks from New Orleans, all those folks from NO, New Orleans on this particular song, and it's like a good day shift type pitch kind of get here. Easily Lil Wayne or Jeezy could have been on this song, Gotta Get It, within some type aspects. Just feels like a dedication mixtape kind of leftover pitch like that same sort of format. So it's just the aspect of just a quieter, it's kind of a quieter era for BG and Juvenile within those pitches. BG was getting ready to get lapsed into his 14-year prison sentence, which is unfortunate. And Juvenile in early 2009 was a lot quieter because he didn't drop his 2009 album until the tail end of 2009. So it's just the pitch as far as saying, so it's a good aspect to be able to get that conduct just left over. This feels like a DJ Drama mixtape ripped out of 2005 or 2006. So excellent type pitches. But yeah, to say in an extra sense, that is an Almost song. It's just kind of the oftenest that just me question. I think I like this song mostly enough within the pitch, but just kind of the fair, just the product of how often. I mean, for the most part, it's kind of a Full Bound winner, but it's just the aspect of me questioning like the full boundness, how much I'd go for it. I mean, just questioning the ofteness of how much it would Full Bound get like a full spin as far as those fairs can happen. But I look within the pitch. On a side note, I noticed that Jeezy wasn't on this album. It's kind of within the pitch. Jeezy does fuck with DJ Drama. I think probably the reason why is because Gucci Mane was on this project. Not as Full Bound, sure, but it's just the pitch that he's kind of someone. It would have been interesting to have gotten an aspect of like Jeezy being on here and like the format of him fresh off of his particular recession days from late 2008. He definitely should have been on here. I think it just would have been too much of a clashing with Gucci Mane, who was probably trying to be prominently shown to like the spotlight as he was getting ready to blow up within those pitches. It probably could have happened. I don't know how those songs would have done within the pitch, because Jeezy was another folk that was getting ready to phase out of the spotlight. But it is something to note is that Jeezy wasn't on here at all. It's being able to say, but yeah, those two Almost songs, this album gets a 9.75 out of 10. The Soulja score, that's kind of tricky. I'd say within the aspect, because the quality of these songs is good. There are some moments more often than not that hit pretty heavily. I'd probably say the Soulja score would more or less get like a 9.5 or a 9.75. I'll go ahead and give it a 9.75 because the quality is definitely on here. There are some winners on here. It's just kind of the format as far as saying. I just think the album, particularly getting more ignored than it probably should, is this kind of format that a lot of folks were kind of past their prime, trying to extend their prime a little bit longer, putting them on beats that just kind of were some good, excellent type fairs, and they were attempted to kind of give them more length within the product of extending like the 2000s type run, but just the format, it just felt like the tides were kind of shifting, like usually what happens with so many albums when you think of like the 2000s and 2010s. This kind of format that these particular fives, this folks were getting their minds made up, and it just kind of shorthanded this album in a lot of senses. But I look after it, I'm still going to give the Soulja score of this album a 9.75. The quality is definitely there, and it has these gems. It's kind of the format that These were just some conduit moments that just kind of had the aspect of just not having to have his bite, just not having as heavy of a bite as it probably needed to. But I look at them pitch. So in terms of the future, like DJ Drama has dropped further albums. I've got some more of those scheduled within those pitches as far as the format kind of happens. This is like a mostly, I would say more or less, this is a classic within those appeals. It's probably a song shy of being it, or like a song and a half, some of those type pitches, but it's just the product. 10 out of 13 at least, plus 2 almost songs with a pitch, so it's a good, excellent aspect. So more or less like a classic within aspects, but I'd say kind of a conduit type album that just had some late shifts and interesting type moments for like pitches of where things were starting to have changing in the guards, but it definitely pulled out the vibes of being able to showcase old styles and new styles.